if somebody's just getting into Stoicism, what's the first exercise that you give them?
Oof. Well, that's a tough question because I actually disagree. I'm kind of working on some stuff now that may be related to that, because as it stands now, the first exercise that's often given is like the dichotomy of control. So just say what's in your control, what's not in your control. And so that is useful in general and extends throughout at least the discipline of desire and definitely the discipline of assent, and to some extent the discipline of action too. So it is fundamental, so it is useful. And I would probably say like just using that as a good first step, except there's a problem that comes up. And that's kind of some of the stuff that I'm working on currently, or at least thinking about working on. I haven't gotten that far yet. But there's a problem that I saw come up quite a few times in my practice group, and also recently on the Stoic Philosophy Facebook group, where somebody says, I try to apply the Stoic fork, the dichotomy of control. And so I know that this isn't in my control, but that doesn't make me feel better. And this is a common thing. And I think the problem with this is that people are starting to practice the discipline of desire without really exploring what's really worth pursuing in life on pen and paper, theoretically, sitting down and thinking through it clearly, and B, learning enough good reasoning techniques to be able to think through the question clearly. And I think this is an essential missing component that was in Epictetus's training program, was probably in the early Stoics training program, that the modern Stoic movement is not focused on. It's just like jump right in. Like you're suffering. Suffering is caused by desiring external things. Apply the fork. Apply the dichotomy of control. You do that, and then you're like, maybe it helps a little bit, maybe it doesn't. But I would think that it probably doesn't work for the people it doesn't work for, because at their root, they don't even necessarily believe that virtue really is the only good, or at least a higher good than externals. So you can tell yourself this, but why tell yourself things you don't believe? And that brings up the utility of logic and reasoning, because one of the reasons I got into Stoicism was because of their respect for reasoning. If Stoicism said, just believe this stuff and do it and it'll work, I'm maybe less prone to actually want to pursue it, because I see the inherent value of reason, both practically and theoretically. It allows me to get to true beliefs more clearly, and it also allows me to take more efficient action more clearly. And it just so happens that Stoicism actually values it well. That's why you have the discipline of assent, and that's why you have the discipline of action, in order to try to think things through more clearly. So what I would suggest the first thing people do is to sit down and think about what they want out of life, or what they want their life to be like. To sit down and take the ancient view of ethics, the kind of starting question. There's a great essay by Julia Annis, the extremely wonderful scholar of ancient philosophy. It's called Ancient Eudaimonism and Modern Morality, and I believe it's in the Cambridge Companion to Ancient Ethics. I believe it's Cambridge. So she starts off by comparing ancient and modern morality, or ancient ethics and modern morality. And she does a great job of describing the starting point of ancient ethics and how it's different from modern moral reasoning. Ancient ethics starts with the idea, you sit down and say, oh crap, you wake up one day and say, crap, I'm living my life and I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing, essentially. And so a lot of ancient ethics is sitting down and thinking about what you want to get out of life and how to get there, applying reasoning to doing that. And ancient schools came up with different answers to this, but they all kind of sat down and thought about it, and they all agreed that you have one life to live. And if you don't think about this question, your implicit philosophy of life is just, whatever the world throws at me, I guess I'll handle. The boss tells me to do this thing, I'm going to do this thing. I'm in this job because I want money, and then, somebody else wants my attention. But what that does is it pings you around from thing to thing. It has other people in control of your life and other external circumstances. You don't know where you're going. In Seneca's words, you don't know which port is favorable if you haven't mapped it out in the first place. So you need to kind of know where. Oh, no, actually, no, wind is favorable if you don't know what port you're going to. So it's important to know where you want to go. But there are lots of ways to think about that. But you could think about it in, quite frankly, crappy ways. You could say, well, what does the world expect of me? Well, what are my implicit expectations? What makes things more comfortable? Well, you're presuming comfort there. So you need to think things through clearly. And so finally, circling back again to the question you asked, I would say that I would recommend that the first thing people do if they want to start practicing Stoicism is to derive it, to sit down and say, well, the Stoics believe these things, but they didn't just say, virtue is the only good, believe it or you're out, because it's one of our catechisms. They actually sat down and had an extended argument for why virtue was good. You should understand that argument, maybe try to pick it apart, and use it using good reasoning skills, not like pick it apart saying, oh, I don't like that because then I don't get to have fun. Okay, well, how do you know what you like? Like, is your implicit philosophy then I should pursue whatever I like? Is that really the philosophy you want? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But how would you know? If you can't answer that question, I would recommend people learn how to.
Yeah.